Hello, my name is Dr. Jackalyn Rainosek, and this is DTP-Leadership Group. It's hot topic, bold talk. With this podcast, I have two different things I'm talking about in it. And so I want to be sure that I give you the title and then also the reason I am adding some comments. This is about gerrymandering, and it's a mid-decade power grab, and it's a battle for American democracy. Now, at the same time, what I want to do is I want to make some comments about the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the violence that's happening in our country, because it's very disturbing to me, and I think it's tragic that a 31-year-old man was killed because of his political position. So I want to speak to that, and I want to let y'all know where I stand on it, since you will see that a lot of my podcasts are confronting what's going on right now. I do want to tell you one thing. This time I'm going to provide all my resources at the end of my podcast, and they certainly will be in my blog on my website. I think, as you will see in my podcast, I do not support what Trump and his mega Congress are doing in Washington right now. The podcast is right now is about the harm that Trump and the Republicans are doing with gerrymandering. However, before I start this podcast, I want to speak about the violence that is happening in this country. To me, what happened in Utah with a conservative political figure that was 31 years old and was assassinated is beyond the word tragedy. I can't think of a word that really fits that situation, or any of the Democrats or Republicans that have had very difficult experiences or were killed. No matter what political position a person holds, there is no excuse and justification for using violence. And to think it will resolve issues for our nation is insane. I have a PhD in counseling psychology. I've been working with people for many years. And so I'm very comfortable in using the word insane in this situation, or anything that has to do with violence. Now, I'll let you know I don't agree with Charlie Kirk on most things. I can admire his gifted organization that he's done and the leadership he's stepped into and the things he's done with his movement. I think they have tremendous courage. Sadly, this kind of violence is not new and does not discriminate against one party, since violence has been dreadful for both Democrats and Republicans. And I think we need to realize how unacceptable this kind of behavior really is. I have some questions for you. Are we getting to the place where people who can be great leaders for our political system will not stand up or stand out because it's not worth it? What is our choice today? Does American citizens choose to cool the violence down and start talking with each other across party lines, or will it blow our country apart? The choices belong to all of us. The masses of the majority who still believe that their neighbors are more than their politics, and that elections need to be settled by fair maps and equal representation of all citizens in the United States. The extremists to the left and right, yeah, they're loud. Or we need to find a way for the majority to talk with each other and resolve the issues that our country has at this time. It is time for all of us to help lower the temperature of the debate and start dialoguing with each other. I want to take some comments by Austin Weatherford, who is the leader of Bright America, when he talked about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Here are his comments, and I appreciate what he has to say. Number one, no applause for bloodshed. No, he reaped what he sowed, or he was fine with kids dying. Is how we talk ourselves into dehumanization, or I'm a human being. Two, Austin says, refuse the dopamine that happens when you get high on being angry or upset or whatever. Don't share the clip that has come out about his death. Don't amplify the taunts or revenge fantasies. Don't turn a killer into a celebrity. Let investigators do their job. And don't be a rumor mill contributor. 3, watch your verbs. These words can really trigger people. I feel crushed, destroyed. This person was a traitor. He got what he was deserved. This is venomous. Words like these are accelerants. They bring strong arguments that we don't need. Use the language of persuasion, not elimination. And elimination is what those words use. They also stop any kind of communication. 4, protect the square. We should all be able to learn to speak, worship, and organize without looking for the exits. That means supporting sensible security at public events, creditable threat assessments, and gun safety measures rooted in evidence, not talking points. Number 5, lead where you are. If you have a microphone, whether it's a podcast, a pulpit, a classroom, a newsroom, group chat, model conflict with some caring and not contempt. When you see your own side dehumanizing something, do something about it. Austin goes on to say, this is really abstract. Political violence is contagious, and it's been spreading. A kidnapping plot against a Michigan governor, an attack on the U.S. Capitol that cost lives, pipe bombs left outside the RNC and the DNC, the break-in and hammer attack that put Paul Pelosi in the ICU, an arson attack at the Pennsylvania governor's residence while the first families slept, multiple assassination attempts against Donald Trump, the killings of state legislatures and their spouses in Minnesota, and now the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah. Austin says, doing none of this is normal in a healthy republic. None of this is normal in a healthy republic. And none of it is inevitable in a free one, where everybody feels they are free and they have an opportunity to be represented and they know that their voice is heard. They are not going to use violence. When is enough? And when will the masses stand together and say what is happening in a country is feeding this violence, and we need to stand up and say what we are joining in masses to stop happening. I want to thank Austin Weatherford for providing these words, and I hope each of you will take them to heart. In my references, you'll also have a way to get on his email list. So I'll move on to the podcast that I had prepared, and I hope will continue to educate you about gerrymandering and the actions we need to take to stand up and say, no, we are going to have fair maps and fair representation in the House of Representatives. So I want to introduce this gerrymandering as a tool of power, not representation. I think Donald Trump cannot escape the shadow of his impeachments. And this is true in an Atlantic article, and there's a lot more about it, which you will see in the other articles I list. Despite returning to the White House, he still fumes about the 2 times Democrats tried to remove him from office. He now fears it could happen again if Democrats get control of the House in 2026. That fear has driven his latest power grab, demanding mid-decade redistricting in Texas and other Republican states. This is not about representation, nor about ensuring fair elections. It is about Trump's survival. And with Governor Greg Abbott willing to do anything Trump wants, Texas has become a staging ground for a dangerous national strategy that undermines democracy and divides Americans even further. I live in Texas. I know they're going to have to go through the court system to ever get this approved, but I think some of you, like myself, are concerned what the Republican-dominated Supreme Court will do. So it depends on what you and I do. That's the most important thing. That's the reason I do these podcasts. Now, I think this is Trump's midterm anxiety, and his big, beautiful bill is not popular. So you don't hear him talking about it much. So the 2018 midterms haunt Trump. He remembers how Democrats, nearly empowered in the House, launched investigations, issued subpoenas, and impeached him. Now he sees 2026 midterms as a test of presidency, his and even his legacy. And he's got a problem, because almost 75% of the people, or even more now, it's up to 90-something, do not support the big, beautiful bill. The White House has pivoted sharply toward protecting Republican majorities in Congress. But here's the problem. The public does not approve of Trump and what his legislation is or anything else he's doing. He is not fulfilling what he promised his voters. Though the big, beautiful bill delivered tax cuts for the wealthy, it slashed health care and services for ordinary Americans. When Republican lawmakers tried to defend it at town halls, they were met with anger, hostile crowds. Even Trump has done little to promote the bill, knowing how unpopular it is. This backlash reveals a fundamental weakness. Republicans can't win fairly on their record. So Trump has decided to change the playing field altogether. He believes holding the House will protect him from investigation and possibly a third impeachment. And he's determined not to repeat what he calls mistakes of 2018 when he stayed in his lane. He's not simply speaking or even seeking a majority. He is seeking a Congress that will be too fearful of him, too loyal to question him, and too paralyzed to act as an independent branch of this government. Instead, Trump is demanding aggressive tactics that break with precedent. That's the gerrymandering. That includes his pressure on Abbott to redraw Texas congressional districts mid-decade. a move designed purely to create 5 new Republican seats. Abbott's compliance and the Texas setting this up is not surprising to me. Governor Craig Abbott has demonstrated that he will bend to anything that Trump wills. When the president demands mid-decade redistricting, Abbott and the Texas legislature, dominated by MAGA Republicans, deliver it. This is not required by law. Redistricting had already been done in 2021 after the census. But Abbott saw his role as advancing Trump's agenda, regardless of the cost to Texans' rights to have fair representation. And if you don't know something about this, you need to read some of my references, because it has eliminated and packed and cracked the 2 methodologies of gerrymandering so that no person of color is ever going to be represented by the way it's drawn. That is irrational and it's totally unfair. The result is a map engineered to entrench Republican dominance in our state. Minority voters have been diluted and their influence is diluted if this map is approved. Communities should have fair representation rather than gerrymandering that's based on political decisions. This is not governance. It is submission. And Abbott has allowed Texas to become Trump's laboratory for anti-democratic maneuvers. And because of Shelby County versus Holder, there is no federal pre-clearance requirements to stop it. The Voting Rights Act teeth have been pulled with Shelby County versus Holder, leaving minority voters with few protections and Trump with free reign. You've heard about Shelby in a previous podcast, but I'm emphasizing it again to show you what's happening in Texas. Texas' move triggered, of course, an immediate backlash. California Governor Gavin Newsom and the Democratic legislature there responded with their own mid-decade redistricting plan, aiming to flip 5 Republicans' seats to neutralize Trump's gains in Texas. California's actions underscore the destructive dynamics. We are now locked in when one side breaks the rules. The other feels compelled to respond in kind. And that is what has happened. I slowed down for a moment because I wanted you to think about what I just said. And California's actions, with Newsom framing his actions as defending democracy, is due to Texas starting a war with gerrymandering. Now, I know Republicans argue they're doing the same thing Trump is doing and manipulating maps for power, and they all know it, and they agree to it. I also happen to know some of the comments made by representatives in our state that they felt fearful if they did not approve this. California's actions underscores what we need to keep looking at. This escalation between Texas and California, the 2 most populated states, represents the nationalism of gerrymandering. It is no longer confined to a few partisan states. It is becoming the primary battleground in the struggle for congressional control. Now, here are the consequences. Let's look at the broad consequences. The silence of voters and the hollow democracy we claim that we want if we're going to support gerrymandering. At its core, this fight is not about seats in Congress. It is about whether Americans will still have meaningful votes. Trump's strategy is a direct attack on representation. By redrawing maps mid-decade, he aims to guarantee himself a Congress that fears him rather than holds him accountable. Abbott's compliance shows how state leaders enable Trump's power grabs. Their loyalty to him outweighs their duties to their citizens in their states. The public has already rejected Trump's legislative agenda. The anger at the big, beautiful bill shows that Americans want health care, they want fairness, and they want accountability, not giving away things to wealthy. But gerrymandering allows Trump and his allies to ignore public opinion. As the nation moves into this fight, we deepen the division. Gerrymandering silences minority voters. It disenfranchises communities and it corrodes faith in democracy. Voters begin to see elections not as expressions of their will, but as games rigged by those in power. That loss of trust is dangerous, and it is precisely what Trump is counting on. That fear, fatigue, and manipulation will keep him not accountable for what he's doing. A Congress engineered through gerrymandering is not a co-equal branch of government. It becomes little more than a rubber stamp for the president's will. This is not a democracy. This is submission. Now, there's plenty of things going on as far as legal things are concerned and lawsuits that are happening. Efforts are being made to push back. Advocacy groups have filed lawsuits. Previously, states like Michigan and Colorado have moved toward independent commissions in the last redistricting period. Federal legislation like the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act has been introduced, and it was approved in the Democratic controlled House. But it's faced a lot of things in the Senate and has never been passed. Meanwhile, Trump continues to expand his tactics. He and his allies have floated unconstitutional ideas like a mid-decade census that excludes immigrants without authorization and an executive order banning mail-in voting, which many people do today. These are not policy proposals. They are attempts to reshape the electorate itself. They want to reshape how you and I are going to vote, ensure that only those favorable to Trump can cast a meaningful vote. So here's my conclusion for this podcast. Think about the words that I gave you from Austin Weatherby and what I've said about violence. Also, this podcast is not about abstract political theory. It is about the future of American democracy. Gerrymandering has always been corrosive, but under Trump, it has become a personal lifetime, a way to hold power at all cost. Governor Abbott complied and showed how Republican leaders will go to enable Trump. And the Texas and California showdown demonstrates quickly partisan warfare can escalate when norms of democracy are abandoned. But the real cost is borne by the people. Every time maps are manipulated for political gain, millions of Americans lose their votes and lose their voice. And in a previous podcast, I gave you the statistics just in Texas alone. 60% of Texas is people of color, yet they're going to be eliminated from representation. Committees are splintered, and communities are splintered. Minority voters are silent, and the very principle of representation is undermined. This is not a partisan fight. It's about whether Americans will continue to have a government that reflects their will, or whether Trump's power grabs will leave us with a Congress that exists only to serve him. The choice is stark: allowing gerrymandering to hollow out our democracy, or demand reforms that restore fairness, accountability, and genuine representation. The future of our democracy depends on it. This is not a time that any of us as Americans can stay silent. We must speak out about what Trump is doing. Speak to your legislators, march in massive crowds so our voices will not be silenced. And when voting time comes, both Democrats and Republicans that care about our democracy need to stand together. One of the things that Trump and Abbott do not realize is gerrymandering can unite Republicans and Democrats to vote to prevent gerrymandering and have the effects he wants. Democrats also need to realize that this can happen to them as well. Gerrymandering has been known to go against the party that supported partisan politics as an electoral process. How about all states develop fair maps and stop this ridiculous fight with Trump directing it, and find out what the electorate of America wants and needs as citizens of the United States? Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you will consider my comments on violence and Austin Weatherford's comments, as well as what I'm saying about gerrymandering. I would love to hear from you, so you are welcome to email me if you'd like to say anything to me about my podcast at Jackalyn, Jackalyn, at D like dog, T like Tom, P like Paul, leadership.com. Thank you.